and welcome back to Fantasy Tomorrow. As always, I would hope you know by now, my name is Jaden, and we have our residential expert, Caleb, over here on the other line. So this episode, we are going to be talking about lineups. As we all know, lineups are the most crucial part of fantasy football, and if you set them up correctly, or what we think is correctly, you could even win your league. It's hard to win your league without great lineups. So setting your lineups without any research is a lot like not studying or taking a test without studying, which works sometimes. Hello, I made it through college, but doesn't always work that great. Hello, I barely made it through college. So we're just kind of here to help you study, as we like to call it, hopefully without the boredom and pain that comes along, but we're here to help you do it nonetheless. Hopefully make it a little more fun. So Caleb, are you ready to talk about the best and worst matchups coming up this week?
Yeah, let's do it.
So as most of you know, if you've been watching this channel for a little while now, all of his matchups last week came true, which you shouldn't be surprised. I'm not surprised anymore. But as he called, the Colts, Titans, and Chargers all had players that broke out last week, and the Broncos, Giants, and Panthers all had players that really weren't worth starting like he called. So with that being said, Caleb, which games are you most excited for this week?
So there's a few games I think are going to be really good for our fantasy teams, and we should target the players on these teams. So one is going to be the Jaguars going up against the Bengals. So the Jags, they had a rough week in week 3, but they should be able to rebound nicely in week 4, especially if DJ Chark is able to return to their lineup and be able to start. Now, they're playing against the Bengals. So the Bengals, they have a bad defense. I think this game is going to turn into a bit of a shootout, and I like Minshew throwing the ball a ton. If it turns into a shootout, I think the Jaguars are going to put up some serious points this week. But I also like the Bengals players going up against the Jaguars, and for similar reasons. I think that it's going to be a shootout. Both teams are going to benefit, and Joe Burrow is going to be slinging the ball all over the place. He could throw the ball 60 times again. We don't know. But if he is, I want a part of that offense. I think this game is going to be one to watch. It's going to be enjoyable, and I think there's going to be a ton of fantasy points scored in this game. Now, the other game I really like a lot is the Rams going up against the Giants. Now, the Rams offense looks elite once again. It's gone back to what it looked like in 2018 when we wanted anybody that was on the Rams offense on our team. And I think that's going to be the case in 2020 as well. So anybody who's involved with the Rams offense right now is benefiting, whether that's Darrell Henderson, Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, Tyler Higbee's even had some nice weeks, and Jared Goff is returning back to a startable quarterback. So I really like them this week. They're going up against a Giants defense who cannot stop anybody. I think that this game is going to be a blowout, and the Rams are going to be able to handle themselves offensively. It could score you some serious points for your fantasy team.
Yeah, I really like Gardner Minshew, but every time we say his name, I just think of the little dragon from Mulan. And I don't even know if that's really his name or not, but as soon as you say Minshew every time, it just pops up in my head, and I'm like, I don't even know if that's his name, but it must be close because I don't know why he'd be popping up in my head otherwise.
I think it is really close. I don't remember the exact name, but I'd never made that connection before. That's hilarious.
Well, I literally, I don't know why, but like when you say that, I was like trying to picture who you were talking about, and all I could see is the little red dragon, and I was like, I don't think that's right, but okay.
Awesome.
So now that we know what games you're looking forward to, which ones are you not looking forward to this week?
So some matchups I'm avoiding are the following. So the first one is Washington football team going up against the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens defense is really good. They just got torched by Kansas City, but that's different. Dwayne Haskins is not Patrick Mahomes. So Dwayne Haskins has been kind of struggling this season. I think that Washington's going to have a really tough time getting anything going against the Ravens. I think the Ravens are going to bounce back in a huge way this week. I don't want anybody on the Washington team playing for my fantasy team. Then also the Broncos going up against the Jets. Now, the Broncos, this is a good matchup for them, but they're missing Drew Lock, they're missing Courtland Sutton. Phillip Lindsay might return, but this offense just wasn't able to get anything going last week, missing all those players. I don't think they're going to be able to get anything going this week, missing all of those players. So I don't want any part of their offense either. And I don't want to start anybody on the Jets going up against the Broncos. And we've been over this before. The Jets are a complete dumpster fire of a team. I don't want anybody. Their head coach had been fired months ago. It's just bad. Stay away from the New York Jets just until the foreseeable future, which is probably 2020 and maybe a little beyond.
I'm literally about to change our cover art on YouTube to say no to the Jets or something like that, because that is literally pretty much all we talk about at this point.
Yeah, pretty much.
Going over it, though, he mentioned the Baltimore Ravens versus the Chiefs, and I just want to say to everyone that thought the Chiefs were going to lose, boo to you. Boo to you.
Yep. I think I'm one of the only few people that actually called that game the right way. I said last week I thought the Chiefs were going to win, but nobody else wanted to make that statement, so...
He did.
Yeah.
Even my boss, which we're all big Chiefs fans here. I'm sure people will know, which we're from, I don't know if I've ever said this, but I'm from Missouri, so it's not just like a bandwagon thing. We're from Missouri, so it's fair. But even my boss, who's like one of the biggest Chief fans known to mankind, like all this, was like, I just don't know. And I was like, dude, get out of here with that negativity. I'm not dealing with that. But here we are. We pulled it out. That's all I'm saying. So now that we know which games you are looking forward to and which ones you are avoiding, I guess it's kind of time to go into starts and sits, don't you think?
Yeah, let's do it.
Perfect. So who are some of your must-starts going into week 4?
So my first must-start is James Robinson, plays for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, I just mentioned I love that matchup. I think that the Bengals' run defense is really bad, so Robinson should be able to run all over them. He should be really, really good, have another huge fantasy day like he did last week. I like James Robinson a lot. I also like James Conner. So he's had a really good last couple of games. He had a rough week 1. He got hurt, but he's been great in the 2 games since then. I think they should have a really good chance to run all over the Tennessee Titans. Dalvin Cook last week just ran wild over the Titans. I think Conner could probably do the same thing this week. So I like him a lot. Another wide receiver that I actually like a lot is Tyler Boyd for the Cincinnati Bengals. Again, I said that I like that matchup. I like the idea that game could turn into a shootout. And Boyd is becoming one of Joe Burrow's favorite targets. He, I think, saw like 8 or 9 targets last week. I think he could just absolutely go crazy in this game and really be a must-start for you starting this week. And then also Allen Lazard. Allen Lazard is coming off of a huge game against the Saints. And he's quickly become one of Aaron Rodgers' favorite targets, especially if Devontae Adams is out of the game. But even if Adams does come back and start in this game this week, I think that Lazard has he's got a role for himself in the Packers offense. I think he's a solid start this week. Another tight end that I actually like a lot is Dalton Schultz. I think he's quickly becoming one of the elite tight ends that we need to start each week. Him and Dak Prescott look like they have some serious chemistry that they're developing. I think he could be an absolutely great tight end going forward, and I think he's a must-start for this week.
Awesome. So now that we have our must-starts, are there any people that you see as must-sits this week?
Yeah, there are. There's a few. One is Carson Wentz, quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles. He looks like a shell of his former self. He has not been good the last few weeks. He may have given you some hope last week because he scored a rushing touchdown and scored a few points, but I don't think he's going to do very well. I think if he's your starter right now, you need to drop him, trade him, do what you can to try to get another quarterback and start them instead, because I just do not trust Carson Wentz right now. Now, another quarterback that I think you should sit this week is Tom Brady, which is kind of surprising. Don't hear a lot of hate on Tom Brady. He's usually pretty good. He had a good week last week going up against the Broncos, but this week he's going up against the Chargers. The Chargers have a really good pass defense. They're really good at limiting the fantasy output of quarterbacks that are facing them. I think that the Chargers have a good chance at limiting Brady. I think Brady might have a tough time, especially if Chris Godwin has to sit out in this game. So I would sit Brady this week. I think there's better options that you can find. Some other people I think you should sit. Any Giants or Lions running back should not be in your starting lineup. It's just, in both of those backfields, it's just a complete committee. You never know which running back is going to break out and get the most touches. You never know who's going to get the touchdown for that team. You just don't know. So I would just stay away from those teams. They both have bad offenses for the most part, and I would not touch either of those running back rooms with a 10-foot pole. So just stay away from the Giants and the Lions running backs. Josh Jacobs for the Las Vegas Raiders, I don't think he's going to have a good week. He had a rough performance in week 3, and he could have another one going up against the Bills. I think the Bills are just going to kind of humiliate the Las Vegas Raiders. I don't think Jacobs is going to have a good game. The Bills have a good defense. So I would sit Jacobs this week. Might be kind of tough to do, but I would do it. Another person I think that you should sit is Terry McLaurin, wide receiver for the Washington football team. He has a terrible matchup against the Ravens. I think the Ravens are going to do a really good job of just shutting out Washington altogether. They have a couple of really good corners in Marlon Humphreys and Marcus Peters. I think that McLaurin's going to have a hard time getting it open. I think Haskins is going to have a hard time getting the ball to McLaurin. So I just don't want any part of Terry McLaurin this week.
Well, there you have it. Now I guess you can kind of jump into flex options. So are there any running backs that you consider as solid flex options for week 4?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's 3 running backs I like a lot. The first one is Mike Davis. Now Davis had a solid game against the Chargers, and he's really slid in and just taken over that role that Christian McCaffrey left when he got hurt. So I like Mike Davis a lot. I think he's going to continue to have perfect and good production, especially catching as many balls as he's catching. I think he had 8 receptions again last week. So I think that you can comfortably start Mike Davis in your flex and feel perfectly good about it. A running back I think is going to produce better than he has the last couple of weeks this week is Nyheim Hines. I keep saying this. Nyheim Hines is a good flex option to have. I think he could turn into Phillip Rivers' favorite receiving option, which is something that we want to have. We know what Phillip Rivers was able to do with Austin Eckler last year. I think Hines might be able to have a similar production this year. He just needs to kind of turn around the last couple of performances that he had. I think he can do that this week. And the last running back I like this week in your flex is Myles Gaskins. He had 27 touches in week 3. Now, we think of him as being in a committee with Jordan Howard and Matt Breida, but Gaskin is getting the workload right now. That's so much production or so much volume that eventually that volume is going to turn into production. It's going to turn into points. And even if he doesn't see that many touches this week, I still think he's going to have a good game and be a solid flex play.
Yes. Nyheim Hines is big on your flex spot. I think you've mentioned him the last 3 weeks at least.
I think I have too, yeah.
Hey, you know what's good. I'm with him. If he says Nyheim Hines, I'm all for Nyheim Hines. So now that we have our running backs that that you consider good flex options, are there any wide receivers that we should maybe think about putting in our flex spot?
Yeah, so one player I think might break out this week is Marvin Jones. Now, Jones has not been great so far. He's a wide receiver for the Detroit Lions, but I think he could break out big against the Saints. The Detroit's going to have to be throwing the ball a ton to keep up in this game. I think Jones is going to be the beneficiary of that. The Saints are probably going to put most of their attention towards Kenny Golladay, the Lions receiver. He's their number 1 receiver. And I think that's going to leave some openings for Marvin Jones. I think he could have a big week against the Saints. Another wide receiver I like a lot is Sammy Watkins. Now, I've mentioned him, of course, a few times because I'm a big Chiefs fan, and I like Sammy Watkins a lot and what he brings to the Chiefs offense. But he actually led the Chiefs in targets in week 3, which is a bit surprising. But Patrick Mahomes likes having Watkins out there. He's got chemistry with Watkins. Now, they play against the Patriots in week 4, and that could be concerning. But the Patriots have a very specific way that they play defense against the Chiefs. The Patriots normally like to double team both Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill. So what that does is that ends up with Sammy Watkins being by himself on an island against Stephon Gilmore. Now normally that's a problem. Gilmore's one of the best corners in the leagues. But Gilmore has not been having a good year this year. He's been burned several times, and offenses have been able to take advantage of him. I think Watkins can do the same. Watkins actually usually plays pretty well against Gilmore. They've been playing against each other for years. I think that Watkins can get the best of Gilmore this week, and I think that he could see plenty of targets and plenty of production in week 4. And the last wide receiver I like a lot is Justin Jefferson. Now, Justin Jefferson, he had a huge breakout game last week going up against the Titans for Minnesota. But I think he's going to be able to continue that going forward. I think that he's kind of the key that unlocks that Minnesota offense. I think he's what they need in order to produce, and Minnesota is desperate right now for a win. They're going to be throwing the ball a lot, trying to beat the Texans. The Texans have a bad secondary, a bad defense, something that can be exploited, and I think Jefferson's going to have a big game once again.
I love Sammy Watkins. But you mentioned the Chiefs, and I meant to ask you this earlier, but did you see your guy, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, being an absolute tank last night?
Yeah, they couldn't tackle him.
There was like one point, which the Ravens is one of the best defenses in the NFL right now, but if not the best, I guess it would be arguable. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire literally had like 6 Ravens defense players on him, and he still didn't go down. And I was like, that man is a tank. I would have been down the minute one of their fingers touched me. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. Many huge, strong guys that practice nothing but being able to tackle you, and he's just dragging them along. And he's smaller than all of them. It's crazy. It does not make any sense.
I was just like, is this really happening? Okay, so now that we got all that out of the way, so hopefully with all that information, you guys can go ace your test and win your matchups this week and just keep going for the W on your league. Bring home that championship for me and Caleb, make us proud. With that being said, as always, my name is Jaden and this is Caleb. In this video, we went on ahead and talked about who you should start, who you should sit, your good flex options, as well as matchups to avoid and matchups to be all for. So go out and win us some games. We'll see you guys next week. Bye.